What is up, you guys? Welcome to episode 29. I'm Jennie O'Connor, and I write and create courses about mastering your mindset so that you can stop settling for less, start asking for more, and finally do the thing that scares you. Like putting yourself out there on social media so that you can finally connect with your dream clients instead of hiding in the shadows and hoping they just find you. Exactly this type of stuff that we talk about on this show. If you are already subscribed, I absolutely love your face. I really, really appreciate you guys. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, do be sure to hit subscribe because we are in the thick of it with the Courage series right now. And there's so much to unpack here when it comes to living your most courageous life. I think I probably have 3 more episodes about this for you guys because there's just so much. It's like creating a foundation of a house and building on the layers, one on top of the other. So I just want to help you move away from fear and into the spotlight, whatever that looks like for you. And I really hope that the Courage series is going to help you get there. So whether that's growing a business or finally sitting down to write your memoir, I believe that this series is going to help you do the thing. So today we are going to talk about a topic that I think almost everybody I know struggles a lot with. Saying no. Saying no, you guys. Why? Why is this a thing that we all have such a hard time with? It sounds so simple, and yet it is so very hard. So, time is the most limited resource that we have. And in episode 12, I talk about how being busy is really bad for you, and it's often an excuse that we use to allow ourselves to avoid doing the important work. If you have any kind of fear around your big, audacious dreams, claiming you're too busy right now is the ideal way to get out of doing it. It's hard for other people to argue with. It is so easy for you to justify putting your family or, something else over your own needs. It sort of martyrs you a little bit. And when your own need is something like writing your novel, it's so easy to justify going out there, being helpful, doing everything for everyone else over doing the thing that you need to do during your time on this planet. So real talk, you guys. One day, someday, whatever it is that you're saying to yourself about the time when you'll finally get to that thing, one day when the kids go to college, someday I'll start writing that novel. That equals never. It's literally a switch, a mental switch in your head that says that whatever that thing is for you, one day I'll start writing the novel, that novel doesn't matter that much. It's not as important as all of the other, sometimes very menial and mundane obligations that you have allowed to be more important than that thing. You do have the time and the energy and the resources that you need to pursue the goals and dreams that inspire you, but you will only find them when you find the courage to say no. This is the only difference, you guys, between you and the people who are writing their novels and releasing their art into the world and reaching new levels of success in their business. Elizabeth Gilbert, one of my absolute faves, talks about surrounding herself with a wall of no's so that she can deliver on what she has said yes to. And she makes the important distinction, and I absolutely love this and think that this is really critical for you guys to hear today, is that she talks about how it's not really about saying no to the things that we genuinely do not want to do. It's about saying no to the things that we'd actually quite like to do or might even love to do, simply because there is something else out there that is actually more important. So that's my baby playing with her ball. That's what you're hearing in the background. So here is an irrefutable fact. Finding the courage to say no to something good is a prerequisite for achieving something great. So let that sink in. Finding the courage to say no to something good, something you want to do, is necessary for achieving the big thing, the great thing, the thing you were put on this earth to do. So ask yourself, maybe you've never even considered this or given it much thought. How is your reluctance to say no impacting your life? So your dreams can come true. There is no question about that. But make no mistake, dreams don't come true by wishing and praying and hoping. They don't. They come true by being intentional and open to receiving opportunities from the universe, from whatever your higher power is. And then by taking committed, intentional action toward the desired outcome. That's how dreams come true. So do a little self-audit for me, if you would. As I'm going through the rest of this episode, ponder this. What is the fast thing that you can say no to right away, yesterday, tomorrow, like right now? What is there? There's something you've committed to that you don't want to do, or that someone is waiting for an answer from you on. What is the fast thing, the easy thing? It's a no-brainer. You absolutely know the answer is no. What is that for you? And what is the thing that would make the biggest difference to the quality of your life if you were able to say no to it? Quality of life, guys. Like, what would be that thing that if you honored your truth would feel like a weight was lifted off of your shoulders, would change everything? You would come home in a better mood. What is that thing for you? So as you ponder those things, I want to talk about why it's so frickin' hard to say no. Why do we struggle with this so much, you guys? So I have a couple of reasons. Number one, we get an immediate hit of people-pleasing gratification when we say yes to someone. And a lot of us don't realize that we are actually addicted to people-pleasing. A couple episodes back, I had Robert Riopel on the show. I don't know if you listened to that episode, but he talked about how he was a world-class, award-winning people-pleaser for most of his life. So it's not gender-specific. It happens to all of us. And sometimes it's so ingrained in our identity, we literally don't know that we get a little hit of dopamine every time that we say yes to somebody. And we're addicted to that, just like it's a drug. So that's one of the reasons we like people pleasing. It makes us feel good. Never mind how much worse it makes us feel later when we actually have to follow through on that commitment. And it's like literally the last thing on earth that we want to do, right? So reason number two, we don't want to say no because we like to be helpful, and saying no feels really unhelpful, feels standoffish. The thing is, and I will get to this again and again as I go through this episode, saying no the right way with intention can be precisely what is most needed to help other people. And certainly it can be the thing that serves your greatest good more than saying yes, obviously. It's also challenging for us to say no because we live in a culture of politeness. And I've written about this on the blog. I have a big problem with the notion that the most important thing we can be in this life is nice. And we're programmed to think that not saying no isn't nice. It's mean. It's mean to say no. I had this problem for most of my life. In fact, let me tell you a little story. I had a friend who several years back was, I think, going through his own self-development journey and like learning to speak his truth and use his words and say his no. And there were a couple times where I reached out to him to ask him to do something. And his response was, no, I have literally no interest in that whatsoever. And I just remember being like so wounded by that. Like it seemed so mean. So here's the caveat. You're not going to get better at saying no if you're walking around with the belief in your mind that saying no is mean. So if that's the way you respond when someone gives you their truth and their no, that has to be switched and uprooted first and foremost. You can't have a wounded victimhood-esque response to somebody else's no if in fact you are going to move forward in your life sticking to your boundaries, using your words, speaking your truth, and giving people your no. So that was really critical for me to get to where I am now, was to stop feeling wounded by other people standing up for themselves. The last reason I think it's so hard for us to do this, for us to say no, like the 97% of the time that we ought to be doing it, is because we lack clarity around what our yes is. So what is it that you value most? What is it that you are most passionate about? If you aren't sure, this is that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there kind of thing. How will you ever know what to prioritize saying yes to and no to? You have to get clear on this first. This is like the most important thing. So consider it like this, like only by having, let's say family is your number one value. Only by having family as your firm number one will you ever find the courage you need to say no to all of the good people and good things that would otherwise consume your time and attention. Remember that when you say yes to something that isn't aligned with your greatest priorities, your yes isn't honoring you and it's taken you off the path of integrity. And in episode 24, I talked about integrity and how it is like the core principle. It is the first component of living a courageous life. So like I said at the beginning, like you have the foundation of your house and this is the brick that you place on top of the integrity brick. That brick must be there first. So this all circles back to integrity. If you say yes to something and you don't mean your yes, you are out of integrity, you are out of alignment, and you are ultimately hurting yourself. So here is an exercise to help you get clear on your yes. Ask yourself what you most want to have in your life in the following areas. So I have a pretty long list here, and I'm actually going to include it in the episode freebie that I'm making for you guys that I will link to in the show notes. So I'm going to read it here, and then you can go through it on your own time afterwards. So what do you most want to have in your life in these areas? Health and well-being, financial position and future security, life balance, family life and children, your relationship with your significant other, if you have one, social life, recreation and travel, career and work satisfaction, spirituality, community, and education and skills. So as you go through this and identify what you value most, what you most want to have in each of those categories, it is critical that you write down what you want and not what you think you should want. Not what your parents wanted in their lives or always have wanted for you and yours. Not what society says you should want, not even what your husband says you should want. No, what you want. That's what the purpose of this exercise is, to point out what your yes is. A lot of us do this thing that Margie Warrell calls shoulding. Margie Warrell is the one that wrote the book that this entire Courage series is based on. I'll link to that. She says we all need to stop shoulding on ourselves. And what that means is when your decision-making criteria is based on what other people say you should do and not, in fact, on what you really want to do. So we say things like this to ourselves all the time. I should join the family business. I should go back to work after the baby's born. I should invite the neighbors over for dinner this weekend. I should stay at this company because the money is good and the job is secure. Anytime you hear people-pleasing, approval-seeking should start to run through your mind, smack it down. Throw it away. Kill it with your mental crossbow. Get rid of that thought. Stop shoulding on yourself. Whenever a thought like that creeps into your mind, ask yourself, says who? Whose authority is it that says, I should do that thing? This is a liberating exercise, you guys, because sometimes you don't realize that the things you are doing, the shoulding, doesn't come from you. I should do this. That's not your authority, but you almost have to consciously ask yourself these questions to get to the point where you realize that you're like robotically living somebody else's life. You're doing somebody else's shoulds. Stop shoulding on yourself right now, today. So here's how. Instead of I should, replace the word should with the word could. I could volunteer for this event, or I could spend that morning working on my novel. Kind of changes the game. So you replace should with could, and then you add an alternative that is something that you really, really want to do. Once you get clear on your yeses in all of those categories, what are the things that you really want to do? And then you weigh those two things. I could join the family business, or I could do something that actually lights my soul on fire. The family business doesn't. It becomes a no-brainer at that point. So this is a super useful exercise for helping yourself figure out what your yeses are and what are somebody else's yeses that have literally nothing to do with you. Screw them. Sorry, whoever they are. All right. Now that you've gone through that, you've gotten kind of clear on your yeses. You can identify when you are shitting on yourself. Think of one person or two people in your life that you have a really hard time saying no to, or feel like you can't say no to. Like for a lot of us, that might be our boss. Can't say no when my boss asks me to stay late and work on a project that somebody else dropped the ball on. Can't say no. What would happen if I said no? This is going to change your life, you guys. Now you're going to write down 3 to 5 ways that you can say no to them. And you're going to memorize them so that they can be your quick trigger response from now on. Because that's the problem. All of us, our trigger response, our knee-jerk reaction is yes. Because we've been programmed that way. And we've never stopped to think about how that's not serving us. Or maybe we have, but we're just stuck in it. So these will be your rehearsed arsenal of weapons, ways to say no to these people who in particular make it very, very hard for you to say no when you want to. One of the criteria that I use before I say anything that's potentially conflict ridden, any hard conversation I have to have, I ask myself these 3 questions. Is what I'm about to say true? Is what I'm about to say necessary? And is what I'm about to say kind? So in the case of saying no, we know that that's your truth. You're not speaking your truth when you're saying yes to something that you don't actually want to do, right? So no is what's true. So is what you're about to say true? Yes, it is. Is what you're about to say necessary? Yes, it is. Because for every no, you get your yes. You get time for your yes. You get to spend time with your family and be more present for them. You get to work on your novel. You get to go into your art studio and do your art unapologetically. So absolutely is what you're about to say necessary. And then the final component is what you're about to say kind. That's the tricky part. That's where I would get hung up in the past, saying no, obviously, because I thought it was mean. So here's a way to ensure that what you are saying is as kind as humanly possible. Explain why you're saying no. That shows regard for the other person. So unlike my friend who was like, that interests me not even a little bit, kind of a little bit harsh, you can say it a different way that will make it easier for that person to receive. So I have a 53 ways to say no list that I'm going to link to in the show notes. This will give you some jumping off points as you do this exercise, coming up with 3 to 5 ways to say no to the people that are hardest for you to say no to. I worked with a woman in my mastermind group last quarter who literally her goal that she had set for herself was to carve out more time to just be. So to sit and look out the window, to meditate, to be fully present in her body so that she could go forth and in turn be fully present with her family. One of the first action steps that she took towards this worthy goal was to create a list of ways to say no that she could use when people ping pong balled her, balls hurling at her face with requests that she could in turn bat them away and say no. So she created this list for herself, and I have over time added to it. So it started as like 30 something, and now I think it's up to 53 ways to say no. And I took some of them off that to my mind didn't come across as kind. No, period. You see that all over social media. No is a complete sentence. Okay, fine. I'll agree with you. But that's not the easiest way to receive that. So I took no, period, turn and walk away, off the list. And I added things that soften your message a little bit. One of the ways to do that is to use however, to distinguish between the person who's asking you and the commitment that they're asking you to make. So something like, you're a great friend and I'd love to join you on this vacation. However, I'm swamped and broke, so I'm going to have to pass. Can we have a girls' night sometime soon? That's brilliant. That separates the person and your feelings about the person from the thing that they're asking you to do. And then that second part, here's an alternative. Can we do this other thing soon? Also really, really, really helps getting your message across. So let's say that you're not the right person for the task that you're being asked to perform. Offer someone else who can. Maybe you know a high school student who's hungry for some random odd jobs who would be way better suited to do that thing than you, who's super busy and doesn't have time to do that thing. Kind of brainstorm how you can offer help in a different way that's not you committing your time if you don't have it. When someone freaks out, because that will sometimes happen, I'm not going to lie to you and say that this is always going to be easy, because it's not. Keep in mind, though, why you said no. What you're saying yes to by saying no to them always needs to be in the front of your mind. Do not beat yourself up. Their expectations set them up for disappointment. Just like you have to take responsibility for how you respond when you're disappointed, just like I had to stop feeling wounded by my friend Brian's no. It had literally nothing to do with me. So too, do those people have to take responsibility for their own disappointment? This isn't on you. This is not your burden to carry. I know it feels bad to think that you've made someone else feel bad. It's literally my least favorite thing to do on the planet. I hate hurting people and would love it if I could go through this life without ever doing it again. But committing to something just to avoid disappointing someone, it undermines your own integrity first and foremost, and it leads to resentment. How is resenting that person and that commitment better than just saying no in the first place and having a little bit of discomfort and then moving the fuck on, right? I understand that no can be tortuous. I know that it can cause hurt and angst and suffering, and it can incite criticism and sometimes even rejection. And all of that shit sucks. But sometimes not saying no infinitely compounds those problems. In fact, most of the time it does. When you say no, when you honor your no, or actually when you honor your yes, the thing that you get to do by saying no to this person, you give them permission to do it too. Also, don't commit to things. We'll get to that. Don't commit to things when you're not really going to follow through on them, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anytime you're asked something, ask yourself, is this aligned with the things that are most important to me? Is this what I most want to do with my precious time on this planet? Will this take me closer to or further away from what I value most? If family is that thing, will you get to spend more time with your family by agreeing to do this thing or less? That right there should help you decide. Do I have the time and resources available to fulfill this commitment? Do you? Because if you don't, no brainer. What impact will this have on my other commitments, especially the commitments to yourself? But let's say you already have committed to a bunch of other things because you're that person that says yes all the time. Stop saying yes to more stuff and just piling it on the pile. That's crazy. It's the definition of insanity. Don't do it. What will I not be able to do because I'm doing this instead? What does saying yes to this mean I have to say no to over here? So if you run down that list of questions, that should help you determine what you really want to say. Even if you feel compelled, even if you're shooting on yourself, that should help you get really clear. This is the qualifier. Only say yes when you know you have the necessary resources to fulfill your commitment. So time, energy, money, skills, whatever that is. If you say yes anyway when you don't have those resources, you diminish your sense of integrity. And also it sucks for that person. Like, I just keep thinking back to when I asked someone to write a letter of recommendation for me and they said yes, but then they didn't do it. And then I inquired about it and they said, I'll get to it. And then they didn't do it. And I asked again and they said, I'm doing it today. And they didn't do it. Why say yes if you know you're not going to do it, or you know you're going to hate the process so much that you're going to resist getting it done? That just did me a disservice. I could have gone and asked any number of other people for a recommendation and not spun my wheels and wasted my time. So don't do that to other people. You wouldn't appreciate having that done to you. No is kinder. It really is. Be aware that learning to say no and learning to create boundaries of any kind and stick to them is always going to be a work in progress. You're never going to nail this down and be superhuman at it. I mean, maybe you will be. And if you are, go you. But probably for most of us who are human and fallible, that you'll sometimes be good at this and sometimes not be good at this. Some people will really make you feel guilty when you speak your truth, and others maybe don't matter quite so much. You will always have to readjust your balance because life is always changing. But what that means is that you always have to adjust the things that you're saying no to in order to bring your life back into balance. So hopefully that was short and sweet. I don't actually know how long I've been talking, but I really felt like this was a necessary episode. I think saying no is one of the most empowering things that we can learn to do for ourselves. So I hope that this episode and the exercises that I explained in this episode will really help you guys live a more courageous life. Start honoring your yes. Start getting your shit done, the important shit. So if you want the freebie that I created with all of the exercises, it's downloadable. And actually, you guys, I'm building each episode of the Courage series on top of the previous one. So if you download this workbook, it's going to include everything from the first 2 episodes of the Courage series as well. So eventually it's just be one giant workbook and you will have it all. But that's just my free gift to you. I'm just trying to make sure that you have everything in your hands to make living a more courageous life easier for you. So if you want to get that download, you can get it at jennyo'connor.com/nope. And that's NOPE, nope, the thing that you are going to be saying way more often now that you've listened to this episode. Please subscribe, you guys, if you haven't yet. And if you're watching this on YouTube, smash that button. And if you are just listening to it with your ears, I would so appreciate if you'd subscribe. And it really, 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 really helps me if you would leave a review. Like, you could just put stars, hopefully 5, but leave me like a little note. What are you enjoying? What do you want to hear more of? How can I be more of service to you everything enthusiasts out there? Also, please share this series with anyone you know who is an everything enthusiast who might benefit from having a little more courage in their life, which is pretty much everyone, I think, right? I think so. Also, please come hang out with me on the socials. Instagram is my jam. It is where I am the most active, but I'm also on Facebook and Pinterest, and all of those are at Your Creative Fairy Godmother. And I'm going to leave you guys today with a quote that really hits home for me about filling your life with yeses that aren't serving you. He who lets the small things bind him leaves the great undone behind him. So don't let yourself be bound by the small yeses that you've given to somebody else, at the cost of getting your great yes for yourself accomplished. He who lets the small things bind him leaves the great undone behind him. Do not leave your great undone. Go forth into the world. Make beautiful things. Make magic. Be your biggest, most audacious self. I cannot wait to see what you accomplish. I love you guys. I will talk to you in the next episode.